a state-church relationship that is based or basically a confusion. In this case, we may not identify church nor identify state. When we see a relationship between state and church which comes to a confusion, the chief of the state is the very same chief of the church. So that's why I wrote in the item 2.1.1 Vatican as a perfect example of a type of relationship between state and church which represents a confusion. As you analyze the Vatican state, you see the Pope being the chief of government, chief of the state, and also chief of the whole Catholic Church in the whole world. That's confusion. We do have also another type of relationship between state and church, which comes to be union. What happens when a state and church gets in union relationship? Simply, the state makes a preference towards one type of religion. Even when we read the constitution of this state, we notice that there is a clear option for one type of religion. We have the constitution, for example, the constitution of Argentina. This constitution or that constitution is an example of a constitution that provides a relationship between state and church which comes to be an union relationship. Also, Saudi Arabia is an union relationship because the chief of the state of Saudi Arabia is not the chief of the Church of Saudi Arabia, but the Constitution of Saudi Arabia makes a clear option towards Islam as the official religion of the state. So that's union. And finally, we have the relationship which may be called separation. And there are many states actually that make this kind of option in terms of state-church relationship. Brazil is one of them, and also the United States of America. The Brazilian Constitution provides a freedom of religion either in the Article 5 or in the Article 19 of the Constitution of 1988. But in fact, the Brazilian history provides information that it was not always like that. The first Brazilian constitution, which was promulgated in 1824, this constitution this constitution did not provide a secular state. Why not? Because at that time, the king of Brazil which happened to be Dom Pedro I, Dom Pedro I, he made the option towards the Catholic religion. And it is settled in the Article 5 of the Imperial Brazilian Constitution of 1824. This relationship between the Brazilian state and the Catholic Church changed considerably in 1891 with the first Brazilian Republican Constitution. At that time, the Brazilian framers of the Republican Constitution decided to separate the Brazilian state and the church. So, since we got to a Republican state in 1891, we are no longer tied to a religion in Brazil. Now we do have a relationship that can absolutely be considered a relationship that represents a separation between the Brazilian state and the church. But we need to go over again the range of religious freedom for the United States Supreme Court has delivered several interesting decisions that must be referred here in our classroom. Firstly, in terms of freedom of conscience, we do have this decision. We do have this decision of the United States Supreme Court, which is Cantwell versus Connecticut. And this decision is very interesting. First of all, the United States Supreme Court made a great effort to make a distinction between the freedom of religion and the freedom to believe. And there is that's how the decision was settled. On the one hand, it forestalls compulsion by law of the acceptance of any creed or the practice of any form of worship, freedom of conscience, and freedom to adhere to such religious organization or form of worship as the individual may choose cannot be restricted by law. On the other hand, it safeguards the free exercise of the chosen form of religion. Thus,